Good morning, everybody. As we go to the Chitas of today, today is Tuesday, we're holding the third reading in the portion of Tzav. Holding on chapter 7, verse number 11. And this is the law, this is the Torah of the peace offering. Asher Yakel Hashem, if a person brings to God a peace offering. If he brings it in order to give thanks to Kadosh Baruch Hu. So this was a korban toida, and the only time that they brought chalis, they were brought unleavened loaves mixed with oil. Belula b'Hashem, rikiki matzah meshuch Hashem, flat unleavened cake smeared with oil. V'seilas mervechas chales, and loaves of scalding flour. Belula b'Hashem. Now she says, if he brings a thanksgiving for a miracle, this is the bracha of Agoimel, what we do today. He brings it for a miracle that happened to him. I mean, those who safely made a sea voyage, or traveled through a desert, for those who incarcerated in prison and released, or a sick person once he had completely recovered, for they're obligated to give thanks. They're obligated to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. For about them it states, they'll give thanks to God for his kindness and for his wonders to mankind. They will offer sacrifice of thanksgiving, korban toida, the sacrifice of thanksgiving. If his vow of a peace offering was due to one of these situations, it's a thanksgiving peace offering. It requires bringing the bread, which the Torah mentions in this passage. It may also only be eaten for one day and one night, as the Torah says here. There are 4 types of breads: loaves, flat cakes, scalding loaves, and these 3 being the type of unleavened matzah, as it states, along with the loaves of leavened bread. So the Torah, as next verse says, the korban Torah was brought with leaven. We actually brought chametz to the Beis Hamikdash. That's when chametz was allowed. Thus, making each type comprised of 10 loaves. So it's brought down the Gemara, Menachos. The total measure is 5 Jerusalem sa, which are equivalent to 6 desert-sized sa, being 20 tenths of an ephah. Mervechas, Ash says, means the bread scalding in boiling hot water as much as necessary. Verse 13, Al chalis lechem chometz, Yaakov Karbani, he must bring his offering along with loaves of chometz, of leavened bread. Al zevach teida shlamav, this was to brought together with the feast offering with the korban tamid, with the korban shlamim. Yaakov Karban al zevach. Rashi says this tells us that the bread does not become intrinsically sanctified, meaning that it can become disqualified or taken out of a permitted area or contact with a tful yom, somebody who's still tamei, and cannot become deconsecrated through monetary redemption until the sacrifice is slaughtered. So Yaakov Karbonai, many different words over here, that in essence the korban, there has to be brought the korban. When does the breads become sanctified? When they bring the korban. Verse 14, he must bring from it one of each, because he had 10 breads of each. So he has to bring one of it. Truma Hashem, that was the offering to God. La kohen, it was given to the kohen, that bread. Hazerik as Adam, that one who sprinkled the blood, one who did the service. Ashlamim Layeh belongs to him, that bread. Now she says, one bread of each of the 4 types he must separate as a contribution given to the priest who performs the service, who may perform its service, and remaining bread is eaten by the owner. So the one who brought the shlomim, he gets the rest of the 9 breads. Similarly, the flesh of the sacrifice is for the owner, except for its breast and its hind leg, just as the waving of the breast and the hind leg is described below regarding the peace offering that it was given to the kohen. And the thanksgiving offering is also called the peace offering. So as we say, shlomim and a taida was given, everybody had part of it. Part of it was given a mizbeach, part to the kohen, and part to the Jew who could take it and eat it. The shlomim could be eaten in Yerushalayim. But the flesh of a peace offering, promoting peace offering of thanksgiving, must be eaten during the day it was offered. You're not allowed to leave it till the next week. You had a whole day and the night to eat the carbon. Now she says, there are several extra words here which come to include the sin offering, a guilt offering, the peace offering, the ram of a Nazarite, the festival offering, all brought on the 14th of Nisan, that they must be eaten during one day and the following night. That's it. So it depends when you brought the carbon. If you brought it right before midnight, right before sunset, then you had that night, that's it. So that day and the night. But Yom Kabani, she says, must be eaten during the day and it's offered up. It's similar period to the allotted for the eating in flesh is a period allotted to the bread. So the person who brought the shlomim needed to finish it in one day. One day, that day he brought it, and the night afterward. By the sunrise of the next day, it needed to be finished. And if you left over, it's called noiser, left over. Lo yaniach ben ha-baker. Now she says, but he may eat it throughout the night. Why did the rabbi say that they be eaten until midnight? Ultimately, the Chachamim said the best thing would be is you finish the food by midnight in order to distance a person from sinning. Because if he leaves it over past nida, what happens if he falls chas v'shalom asleep? And next thing he knows, it's the next day. And now he has leftover table full of stuff. So that's why the Chachamim always made that the best thing should be, you should do it by midnight. And that's it. And make sure to finish by midnight. Because you wanted to make sure people wouldn't do an Aveda. Verse 16. So too, if a sacrifice he brought to fulfill a vow or a dedication, he made an adava to the Beis Hamikdash. Again, he needs to eat the carbon the day he brought it, and the next day, and he may eat on the next day. So 2 days. The day he brought the carbon from the dava, and the next day. Now she says, if a vow or a dedication, meaning he did not bring it as a thanksgiving for a miracle. It does not require to be brought with bread. That's a carbon taida. Bread, and may be eaten for 2 days, the day he brought it, and the next day, as detailed in this pasuk. So a neder and a dava, you had an extra day. Rashi says, on the next day, what is left over from it, from the first day, may be eaten. The vahanoisa, the vav, is superfluous. And therefore, there are many such cases in Torah, such as, it says, the sons of Ve'ela b'nei Tivyon, Ve'aya v'ana. So you have these vavs, extra vavs. They're living in the sanctuary, the host, V'kodesh v'tzava. So Rashi says the extra vav, sometimes you find the extra vav. Not always is that that's a usual thing in the verse, to add an extra vav to a word. V'hanoisa. Could have said hanoisa. V'hanoisa, and the extra. Verse 17 again, the pasuk is further. Neisa mibzar is a zavach. But if there's any leftover food by Yom Hashlishi, to the 3rd day, by Eish Yisaref, it needs to be burnt in the fire. That's the law of Neisa. If you leave over any food over the time period of the time the carbon needs to be eaten, you have to burn it. Verse 18. If he slaughtered, and this is an interesting, simple verse says if somebody eats from the food. The pasuk really is talking for Rashi, as soon see. Rashi says when talking here, and that's what he translates over here, that you had a mind. You had a mind to eat it past its time. That's what the pasuk means. If you slaughtered it in intent of some flesh of a peace offering, promoting the peace offering to be eaten the third day, that means if a person chas v'shalom brings a carbon, and he has in mind this carbon adava, and he has in mind that he's going to eat it on the third day, which is prohibited, then lo yiratza, then it's not even good from the beginning. Lo yichashiv lo, it's not considered he brought a carbon. Pigol, it's counted as a contemptible concept. Pigol, disgusting thing. Hanefesh shecheles mimena, and a person that eats it even the first day. Avoina tisei carries a sin because he had in mind. The only one who knows what you have in mind is God. So when a person has in mind, when he brought a carbon to eat it past its time, it's pigel. It's unacceptable. And even nobody knows what he had in mind, but God knows what he had in mind, and therefore the carbon is invalid, and it carries a sin of even when he ate it at a time is as if he ate it out of its time. Nash says this verse is referring to here to one who has, while slaughtering the offering, articulated his intention to eat on the third day. Perhaps I might interpret the phrase literally, implying that one who eats on the third day, and it becomes invalid retroactively. Therefore, the Torah states it will be counted for one as offered it up. It can become invalid while being sacrificed, but cannot become disqualified on the third day. That's the problem. So therefore, if a person eats it the third, doesn't mean they didn't bring the carbon. He just ate it past its time. But we're talking specifically about a person that when he brought the carbon, he had in mind that it was for the third day. It will be counted as one who offered it. They cannot be invalid while being sacrificed, but cannot become disqualified on the third day. This then is the explanation of the verse. While offering it up, such a thought must enter his mind, the one who offered it up. And if he did have such an intention to eat it after its time, and articulated, the sacrifice will become contemptible. And the person who eats it, even within the my internet went down. Okay, I think we're back up. The internet went down. Okay, I'm sorry.
God doesn't like the internet?
I don't know. This went down. But we're back up. Okay. And if the flesh touched anything, if the carbon, for whatever reason, touched anything that's tummy, lo ya'achel, he's not allowed to eat it anymore. Be'esh yisarif, he has to burn it in a fire. Ba'abasa kultur, And anyone who is not richly defiled, yechal basar, can eat flesh. Again, we'll see what Rashi says, the meaning of the verse. V'abasar, of a holy peace offering that touches anything ritually defiled, must not be eaten. Rashi says v'abasar, and the flesh. This word is repeated twice in the verse. V'abasar, v'abasar. The word is repeated to include a case where part of the limbs was taken out of the required area, that the part that remains inside remains permitted. Kol tar yochel basar. Anyone who is not richly defiled may eat flesh. Why does the Torah have to state this? Since it says the blood of your peace offering must be poured and you may eat the flesh, I might think that only the owner may eat the peace offering. It therefore says that anybody, the owner can invite his whole block, as long as he's staying in Yerushalayim. Anyone who's not richly defiled may eat from these karbanos. With regard to the flesh of a peace offering, anyone who is not richly defiled may eat from the flesh. This means to say, everything I declared forbidden for you, referring to the sin offering and the guilt offering, meaning that they are taken outside the courtyard of the temple, they are forbidden. As it's written, they must be eaten. There's certain karbanos, like a sin offering, a guilt offering. These karbanos are called kachim, the Holy of Holies, and they need to be eaten in the Beis Hamikdash. But the shlamim, taida, the dava, these things may be eaten outside the Beis Hamikdash. During the peace offering flesh, I tell you, anyone who's not richly defiled may eat the flesh, even within the entire temple city. So we're in even Yerushalayim. So you could have brought a carbon shlamim, then invite everybody over to your home, if you're in Yerushalayim, with your hotel room, and invite them all over. Anybody wants to have part of the shlamim. The main thing is they had to be tar, they had to be pure. If they were not pure, then they weren't allowed. Verse 20. Regard to a person who eats from the carbon, from the sacrifice. Ashel Hashem, which was to God. Utumase alav, and he's tummy, God forbid. Such a person, he does intentionally. Such a person that doesn't intentionally, he eats from the holy sacrifices while he's tummy, he's cut off from his people. Now she says, the verse over here, the Gemara says, is speaking of one who he is himself richly defiled. But one who's not richly defiled and eats sacrifice flesh that is richly defiled is not punishable by cutoff. That means that if a person that is tar eats tummy food, it's not, you don't get cutters, but only for the transgression, the prohibition, the flesh of a peace offering that touches anything richly defiled will not be eaten. So there's two different laws. There's a law of a person being defiled, God forbid, he's tamei, or the food tamei. If a person eats tamei, kachim, food that was a carbon and became defiled, you did a lav, you did a negative commandment, which you shouldn't do because the food needs to be burnt. But if a person took holy food and he was defiled, he was tamei, he was impure, and he eats this carbon while he's impure and he knows he's impure, that's b'mezid, intentionally eats a carbon, then he gets kares, God forbid. The warning against ritual defiled person eating ritual undefiled sacrifice flesh is not mentioned explicitly in the Torah, but the sages derive it by the means of analogy. 3 times the punishment of cutoff is stated regarding those who eat sacrificial flesh in a state of ritual defilement. And our rabbis expound this in the Tractate of Shavuos. One as a general statement that would include all sacrifice of all sacrifice. One mentioning a specific case, the peace offering, thus limited the route to sacrificial animals, and one to indicate that the case of a rabbi sin offering is prescribed specifically for entering the sanctuary or eating the sacrifice in a state of ritual defilement. So we're talking about the concept that a carbon oil of a yoid, a specific kind of carbon. That oil of a yoid means a carbon that has a oil of yoid means that you can have the highest, the richest to the poorest. And the rich man gives an animal, the poor man gives a dove, and the real poor man gives only flour. So that it's talking about specifically about a carbon that again that a sanctuary eaten and sacrificed. And a person who touches anything ritually defiled. Tumas Adam, whether the source of defilement by a human being, that chas shalom, a dead person, or he touches a defiled animal, or anything spiritually defiled, loathsome creatures, dead. And then he goes and eats a carbon. He knows that he eats a sacrifice, which he knows he's not allowed to do that. And that person will be cut off from the Jewish people. Verse 22. God spoke to Moshe saying, Dabel b'nei Yisrael, speak to the Jewish people. Lamer saying, Kol chelev, any fats of a sherd, of an ox, v'chesev, or a goat, or a sheep, v'ez, or a goat, loisachel. So there are certain fats that even till today needs to be taken away from the animal before it can be eaten. So you're not allowed to eat certain chalevs. Until today, when they shecht an animal, they take away those chalevs and they discard it. And the rest of the chalev that you see in the animal is a permitted chalev. So this is only chalev because you see always when you have a steak, you'll see chalev. But that's the chalev, as the Torah mentioned, the chalev on the kidneys, the Torah mentioned already, the different fats that need to be brought on the mizbeach. So that's what we're talking about. The fats, the specific fats that the Torah mentioned in Vayikra, those fats that need to be brought on the altar, they are prohibited till today from a Jew eating them. Whether it was a carbon, when you brought a carbon, it went on the mizbeach, whether it was for your own consumption. The fat of a carcass, the fat of an animal with a fatal disease. You're allowed to use these fats use it to oil your car. You're allowed to use these fats to oil your utensils. You're not allowed to eat it. Now she says this comes to teach us that fat of a carcass does not impart ritual defilement in the way that flesh of carcass. So there's a difference, because how would you allow to use it? So you're allowed to use it. The animal itself can be metama, a dead animal that was not shechted. That's a nevela. A nevela is if you find a dead animal on the side of the road, it's called a nevela. That animal's metama, makes a person defiled if he touches it. But let's say a defiled person goes and takes the animal, takes out the fat, and now gives it to a person who's undefiled. The fat won't make him tummy. The basar, the meat, flesh makes him tummy. You're not allowed to eat it. The Torah hereby tells us that the prohibition of eating a carcass or a fatal injured animal takes effect in addition to the existing prohibition of eating fat. So we know there are two situations. The only way you can eat an animal, a kosher animal, even a cow, is when you shecht it. If the animal is found dead before shechting, I'll eat it. It's an avela. Let's say they shecht the animal, and then they find in the animal that the animal is fatally ill. He has a punctured lung, for example. That's where the whole thing came glat kosher. Glat was that they used to go over the lungs, and it was glat. It was smooth, because a lot of times you take the lungs and they're not smooth. They have a lot of sirchas. There's a lot of issues, so they were not glat. So they were kosher because of the question. But if there's, for example, you find a punctured lung, then the animal's treif. Even if you shechted it, it's called a treifa. A treifa means, that's why That's why you should know that there's a very small percentage today of animals that they shech, that they find to be totally good. That's why it's very expensive, kosher meat, because simply it's a small minority that can shecht 100 animals and it'll be USDA fit to be eaten, but not be kosher pi halacha, because animals have a lot of issues that the rabbis in halacha, that they will disqualify the animal, and the animal becomes treif. So even though they shechted it, the second they opened it, they found different issues in the animal, and they're going to give it. The USDA will accept it, the government will accept it, but halacha will not accept it, and they're going to give the animal away to non-kosher. And that's why, again, so you can shecht 100 animals. I think it's less than 50% is going to be kosher. You can look it up. I once saw the number. It's a shocking number, but in essence, that's a problem. So that's a treifa. That's the law of a treifa. So the animal is shechted. Everybody works so hard in shechting the animal, and then they open up the animal and they find an issue with it, and now the animal becomes treif. So therefore, it takes effect in addition to existing prohibition of eating fat. That if someone ate the fat of a carcass, also concurs prohibition of eating a carcass, and you do not apply the usual rule of prohibition cannot take effect on already prohibited object. So therefore, the Torah in essence tells us that there are many different laws. That's why the difficult laws. So when you shecht an animal to the fats, to if it's still kosher, and what's a treifa? How does it become a treifa? Verse 20, treifa means a unfit animal, an animal that is an injured animal. It's a fatally injured. So you have to know the laws of what makes an animal fatally injured. And then we are even more glatt kosher. We make sure that even the animal is not fatally injured, but if he has issues on his lungs that are not fatal per se, but could have brought a concept of extreme sickness to the animal, we're still going to consider it treif. Okay, verse 25. Whoever eats fats from an animal, which sacrifice are brought to the fire offering of God, this is again the second time the Torah mentions, as Rashi said, that it mentions it 3 times. Verse number 26. Not only fats, a Jew is not allowed to eat blood. To all your dwelling places, whether it's to a fowl or to a mammal, to an animal. Rashi says, what it means b'chol meshvei seichem? We should know when it says meshvei seichem in your dwellings, it means a chayvas haguf. This is not a chayva on the animal; it's the chayva on the body of the Jew. That's it. Chayvas haguf ve'ein a chayva karka neges b'chol meshvei seichem, and this excludes the blood of a permitted fish and a grasshopper. Since this prohibition is binding upon the individual and not on the obligation connected to the land. See, there's certain mitzvahs that are connected to Eretz Yisrael. You might think that in Eretz Yisrael you're not allowed to eat treif, but maybe out of Eretz Yisrael, no, it's a chayvus aguf. It's an obligation to the body. So it doesn't make a difference if you're living in Eretz Yisrael or you're living in America. That's why he said, wherever you live, it's a chayvus aguf, it's a body issue, and even if you go on vacation, you still have this law of eating kosher, of eating a kosher animal, of eating a shechted animal. Not only kosher, it has to be shechted, really richly slaughtered. It has to make sure that there was a rabbi there to make sure that it's not treifa. So there's a lot of things that we go into when you eat meat, especially, and so too blood. You're not allowed to eat wherever you are. It dwells in the first tractate Kedushin, explains why it's necessary for this term to be stated. So we know that the blood, only blood of an animal, not blood of a fish. You don't have to salt fish to take out its blood. So the blood of a fish is mutter, the blood of a chicken, the blood of a animal is prohibited. And the Torah says it many times, not eating blood. Kol nefesh asher seichel dam. If anybody eats blood, v'nichas ha-nefesh yimamer, and that person will be cut off from the Jewish nation. Verse 28. God spoke to Moshe saying, Daba b'nei Yisrael, speak to the Jewish people. Lamer saying, if somebody brings a peace offering, lavaya, yavi es kavana lavaya, he shall bring his peace offering to God, from his sacrifice. What should he bring? Yodei to Vienna. His own hands must bring the fire offering, as Hashem, as a chaylev, the fats, alachaza, that which the priest brings on top of the breast. Yaviena as a chaza lahanefes tnufel Hashem. He brings the breasts and the fats. He brings it to uplift to God. What does that mean? Rashi says the hand of the owner must be on top of the hand of the priest with the fat in the base of place. So you basically put the one hand, you take the bat, you put on one, and you put your hand underneath. You put the hands underneath. Place the hand of the priest underneath the owner's hand. So the fats he brought the fats in his hand, and then the kohen put his hand underneath the owner's. As Isha Hashem, this is a law of a tenufa, that not only the person has to bring it, he has to actually bring it with his own hands, and he has to uplift the carbon. He has to do a tenufa, he has to wave it. As a chazah, the fat on top of the breast must he bring. When he brings it from the slaughtering area, he places the fat on top of the breast, and then he transfers it to the hand of another priest who does the waving. The result is that the breast is above and the fat is below. This is why it's stated in another place, they must bring the hind mid leg used as raised offering, and the breast used as a wave offering on top of the fats used as a fire offering to wave. After waving, the priest gives it to a third priest who burns the fats, such as the breast is again underneath. As they flip it from one to another, the fats that was underneath became the fats that was on top. And such as the breast is again underneath, and then, as it says, they place the fats on top of the breast, and he burns up the fats on the altar. We thus learn that 3 priests are needed for this service, and this all explained in the Masechta Menachos. As a chaza as a chaylev ala chazi of Vienna, the fat which he brings on top of the breast. And why does he bring the breast? He brings in order to wave it, but not that was among the fire offering, because the chaza was given to the kohen, but he brought it as a waving. The Jew who brought this carbon, that was his obligation. For since it says the fire offering to God, the fat on top of the breast, I might have thought that the breast must also be a fire offering. Therefore it says the breast to wave. Chazeh hatnufa. It's that they wave the breast. The breast was ultimately given to the kohen to eat. And as the verse says in 31, and the kohen brings the fats on the altar, but the breast of the animal was la'ad and levana was given to Aaron and his sons. Now she says, after that the breast will be to Aaron. We learn from that the flesh may not be eaten as long as the portion designated to be burnt was still on the altar. So the kohen had to make sure to first bring part of it to God, and then he could have gone and eaten for himself. Verse 32, as Hashoik hayamin titnatun lakohen, then you must give the right hind leg to the kohen. That's a zifchei shamechem from your peace offering. Now she says, what is the hind leg? This is the bone between the joint of the lower bone, arucha, which is sewed together with the head, and the joint above the middle bone, known as in halacha as seivech shel haregel. Verse 33. Any of the sons of Aaron are fit to offering the blood peace offering and the fat will have a share of the right hind leg. Rashi says, one who's fit to dash it, blood and burn its fats. This excludes one who's richly defiled. While the blood is being dashed, or while the fats are being burnt, he does not receive a portion of the meat. Verse 34, because the breast used for waving and the hind leg took it for the Jewish people of their sacrifice. And I've given it to Aaron. HaKohen, with the Kohen, Ulevanov, I've given it to them as a gift. L'chak olam, it's forever. Me'ez b'nei Yisrael, for the Jewish people, for their sacrifice, I gave them this. Now she says, Tnufa, again, Tnufa, we'll see this a couple times in Rashi. Tnufa meilech umevi, Tnufa means you pick up, you go forwards, backwards, meilech umevi, meile umeited, forwards, backwards, up and down. Verse 35. This is what's due to the fire offering of God. It's what's for Aaron and his sons. Meisha Hashem, for the fire offering of God. With the day I brought them to be Kehanim to me. Hashem has lost Islahem, which God commanded to give to them. Beyond Moshe, for the day that they were invested. From the Jewish people, this is the everlasting law. That they get this one of the matnes kohuna, one of the gifts to the kohen. Verse 37. This is the law to an oila, to the mincha, lachatas, laasham, lamaluyim, and to the installation, lazevach hashlamim, and to the peace offering. We just went through all these offerings. Liyem achinach hakohen, lamaluyim is the day that the kohen was instituted. Verse 38, Ashativ Hashem is Moshe, which God commanded Moshe by Sinai in the mountain of Sinai. The day he commanded the Jewish people to bring the sacrificial offerings Hashem to God b'midbar Sinai, in the desert of Sinai. And that completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya of the day. We are in chapter 39 of Tanya. So the Alter Rebbe has been teaching us the abodes of the soul, which each soul, we have souls of the world of Atzilus, we have souls of the world of Bria, we have souls of the world of Yetzirah, we have souls of the world of Asiyah, right? So having discussed the various abodes of the soul, three worlds in which the soul receives a reward commensurate to the level of the divine service during their life on this earth, Alter Rebbe now returns to the theme which he started in chapter 38. There he noted that kavana in a mitzvah, which the soul of a mitzvah, can be classified in various categories. Right? We mentioned Yud Kei Vav Kei, that kavana, two higher levels of kavana, corresponding to different levels of soul found within living beings, soul of the animal or of man, and so on. So kavana consists of intellectual love and fear, is like the volition of a soul of man. A kavana consists of natural love, and fear is like the soul of an animal. That's what the Alter Rebbe explained in chapter 38. To support this contention, he discusses the various level of abodes where soul receive the reward commensurate with the divine service on earth. So therefore, ultimately, the way a Jew, the kavanah he's going to have in this world is going to be his reward in the upper worlds. To returning now to the original theme, the Alter Rebbe points out that from the varying levels of reward, we can deduce the respective levels of divine service motivated by the different levels of kavanah. So we, just to remind ourselves, so we have the higher level of kavanah, which is symbolic to the soul of man, is the kavanah that comes through one's own labor, one's own intellectual capacity. And the more a person learns, and the more a person comprehends, and the more a person connects to it with his mind, that is the concept of a human being. That's the purpose of a human being. And then we have the kavanah of an animal, means instinctively. Not it's an animal, because we're talking about a human being, But we're talking about when there's a kavana, which the Alter Rebbe said comes from his ava misukteres, comes from who he is. And that's the way he is. He reveals his inner soul. He reveals his essence. And therefore, every Jew loves God. As the expression goes, Maminim b'nei Maminim, Jews are believers, the sons of believers. It is who we are. And that's like the soul that's natural, that's instinctive. So now the Alter Rebbe is going to go and going to say everything is going to... And then you have the emotional side, which is speech. And then you had the lowest level, which does action, does doing the mitzvah. And that's like an inanimate object. Geguf b'lei neshama. So that's what the expression, like an inanimate object. He did the mitzvah, it's unbelievable. That's a great thing, does doing the mitzvah. But it's symbolic to a stone because it's an inanimate object. It's an object that is like a body without a soul. No kavanah at all. Mitzvah, the reward of a mitzvah is the mitzvah. So, unlike wages paid to a laborer, we gave this example, for example, which has no index of nature the work performed. A person does the job and he gets money. What does the money have to do with the job? Garnished. There's nothing that he does the job. He cleans the floor. He is an accountant. He's a doctor. He's a lawyer. He's a rabbi. Whatever his job is, he gets money. Money has nothing to do with the job. It has no connection. That's what you get when you do your job. So there's no connection. The reward of a mitzvah is the mitzvah. So the reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah. Meaning the revelation of godness experienced by the soul that performs the mitzvah is actually the fruits of the mitzvah itself. You're not like getting paid. The reward is not that you're going to get... No, the reward is the mitzvah. So it depends how you do the mitzvah. How you do the mitzvah, that's going to be your reward. You're going to do the mitzvah like a rock, your reward is going to be in that concept. You do the mitzvah with emotion, your reward will be in the world of emotions. You do the mitzvah with intellect, your mitzvah will be in the world of intellect. You do it only because that's who you are, your soul, then that will be that way. If you do the mitzvah like tzaddik, gomer, that you're a makav, then the reward is natzilis. So it all schar mitzvah means because that is the reward. The mitzvah itself is what you receive. From the reward, you know what the mitzvah is. This means we know the essential nature of the rank of a mitzvah by its reward, by the nature of the light generated by the mitzvah and revealed to the soul as its reward. So therefore, that's going to be the reward. What you put in is what you get. So the way you do the mitzvah, that's what's going to be the reward. Now we have no concern ourselves. We don't have to concern ourselves with hidden matters. So you think about it. Schar mitzvah. So what is my reward? I don't feel atzilas. I don't feel bria. I don't feel yitzira. I don't feel asiya. I don't feel these spiritual realities. These are nestaris to me. They are hidden things to me. Shem tzaddikim gleilim, meaning great tzaddikim on the level of chariots. God, Shem Bechinas Makava, whose divine servant comes under the heading of hidden matters because it transcends understanding. So really, they are tzaddikim. As I said, tzaddik be'menasa yichya. Tzaddik, the tzaddik lives with his mitzvahs. He gets his chayis for his mitzvahs. He receives all his energy from every mitzvah that he does. So it's a tzaddik is on a whole different level. But only through the matters, but only those matters revealed to us in which every man must aspire, meaning only with those levels of divine service which may and ought to be attained by every Jew as follows. And this Alter Rebbe says, that's where you have to have emunah. Every one of us needs to have emunah. Leida nemana. It must be known with certainty. The essential nature and rank of the divine service, in the reveal of his heart. That that comes from his understanding and his knowledge, bigdulas Eisei Baruch Hu, in the greatness of the light of God. And in which is said earlier that the reward for the divine servant motivated by such love and fear is on the level of the world of Bria. Mekayma b'yitzviras de Bria. That's what I said. No, whether you see it or not, you need to know these concepts. You need to know that when you have intellect and anything that you do with intellectual comprehension, which creates Avos Hashem through your intellect, you are connecting to the Yud Sfiras in the world of Bria. That is what is happening on the moment you do this mitzvah. And when you do the service, motivated by natural fear and love of God, hidden in your mind, not emotional experience of the heart, but mental awareness in the inborn love and fear of God, of which is said earlier that such a service is rewarded in the world of Yetzirah. Why? Because if I do my service through my emotions, then, meaning I waken up my Avas Hashem, my love of God, I don't have great intellect in it, I just awaken up the emotions, the hidden emotions that I love the Eibishter. I ultimately, by me doing that mitzvah, I bring about a revelation of godness in Yud Sfiras, in the 10 Sfiras of the world of Yetzirah, in the 10 manifestations in the world of emotions, the world of formation. But when you do a service that has no emotions, there's no revealed emotion, not in his mind, not in his heart. He's out doing it out of rote. I'm not even doing it. I'm not waking up any kind of love of God. I'm not trying to reveal any love of God. I'm not even trying to reveal this love of God, to reveal it in my mind. I feel he doesn't want to do that for whatever reason. Be revealed in one's conscience of mind and letting you see of his heart, so that he may evoke, if they're not passionate favor, then at least a mental resolve to cleave to God by fulfilling the mitzvahs. This love is hidden, it still stays hidden in his heart. Kid told Day said like it was born, like when he was born. Like it was before the service. So I served God, and I did it out of rote. I did it out of force. I did it out of fear, just afraid of something. Whatever, I did it because I was supposed to do it, not because of any love of God. I didn't create any love of God. And my love of God is still concealed, not expressed itself in divine service. If the love is similarly hidden when he engages in divine service, the mitzvahs that he does are no way affected by love, then this Avodah stays in this world. That's the two lowest levels. So the oil, it doesn't go above, as opposed to the spheres, which are internal aspects of the world. And it doesn't have the strength. It doesn't have the strength to reach up to the 10 spheres, to the spheres Elyonos. And that's the problem. That's why we need to at least awaken up some passion, some love of God. Even if it's a Latin love of God, even if it's a basic love of God. There has to be Avin Yira. As brought on the Zayah, the Beloy, the Chila, v'rechima. When a Jew does something without fear and love, like parcha le'ela, it doesn't fly above. So if you don't have an uplifting experience, if you don't serve the Eibishter with a little Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, then you simply have a bird that doesn't fly. You have, so to say, a mitzvah that is stuck in this world. And it cannot rise and stand before God. That's why it says, Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. You need to always serve God with your simcha. There needs to be simcha. There needs to be passion. There needs to be ava. If not, it cannot rise. And that's what we need to accomplish. As explained at length further, love and fear are the wings of one's divine service. Lacking the wings, cannot soar aloft. The Alter Rebbe is going to come back a little bit as we're going to continue the Tanya. But over here, right now, Alter Rebbe says, we cannot, if not, we stay like a rock and vegetation. We need to connect to the soul, to the higher levels a little bit, in any kind of way where we can, to bring a little bit of Avas Hashem in things that we do, to make sure that everything, every mitzvah we do has within it the two wings that let it fly, the kavana, the little kavana that gives me whatever it is, even the Latin love, love that's based on intellect, love that's above intellect, all kinds of loves that the Alter Rebbe explained. You need to have some aspect of love in every mitzvah that you do, because that's going to be the wings that are going to uplift the mitzvah that you do. Okay, that is the Tanya of the day. Today is the 10th of the month. And then the Tillim is chapter 55 to chapter 59. If you say those 5 chapters of Psalms, you did the chitas of the day. The Rebbe writes today in the 10th of Nisan, in the Yom Yom, day to day, he writes as follows. On the subject of the campaign to advertise the observance of Taras HaMishpacha, family purity, in your community, ponder this deeply. Let us imagine that God were to give you the opportunity to save a Jewish community from extinction, God forbid. You would certainly be willing to risk your life for this. And you would thank and praise Him for the kindness in offering you an opportunity for such an erroneous merit that you can save an entire community. Imagine if you had the capability to save one Jew. Now you can save an entire community. The Eibishter gave an opportunity to save this community. The same then holds true to an even greater degree with regard to the campaign for Taras HaMishpacha, to make sure to go out and campaign that women should go to the mikveh and inspire them to go to the mikveh and make sure that every community has a mikveh. And not only has a mikveh, it has a beautiful mikveh. So that inspire women to go to the mikveh, because it's endeavor that which literally saves lives. And not only saves one person's life, saves a community's life. So therefore, you should take it as a great schus to go out there and make sure that people know that there's a great obligation that women should go and do Taras HaMishpacha and do this unbelievable mitzvah. And that is the Yom today. I wish you all a wonderful and beautiful day. And Emir Shem will continue tomorrow at 8 o'clock. We'll come back and learn the chitas of the day. Have a beautiful and happy day.